I could not be more excited to spend the next few minutes digging into this world of Sub 70 golf and learning about its origin story and what makes it so highly regarded among golfers. It's not easy to make your way in a world that's crowded with billions of marketing dollars running in opposition to you, and Sub 70 is flying kind of upstream in that manner. So Jason Hiland is the man behind it. Had the idea a few years ago for something unique. And Jason, welcome into the program. It's good to see you. How are you?
I'm good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Look forward to the conversation.
Yeah, I want to start with like the kernel of the idea back when it happened. How did Sub 70 Golf first become that little nudge where you said to somebody else, I have this idea and I wonder if it'll work.
So I had kids a little later in life. I was in my early 40s, so I had a golf component company, which we still have called Diamond Tour Golf, that I started when I was 22. So I took a little bit of a breather for about 3 or 4 years where we had a really good group, and I enjoyed the kids when they were little. And then the kids grew up from being babies to toddlers, and it got a little easier, and enjoyed that time. But then I got a little bit bored, so it was like, okay, what are we going to do for part two or act two? And that's where Sub 70 came from. So it was sort of a motivation of what do I want to do next. And you were starting, we were trying to see, well, we knew we wanted to do a hand built everything, boutique, done here in Sycamore, nothing pre-made, build the clubs how we would build them for ourselves.
Hmm.
With every, you want the line angle 0.75 degrees upright, you can do it. You want D3 swing weight, we can do it. How would we do our own stuff? And then the tricky part was, well, how do we differentiate ourselves from Titleist and Mizuno's? And those are great companies. Pings, right? I mean, you can't argue they've done a wonderful job of getting to where they're at, and
Yeah.
they're fantastic, right? Like you don't sell $1 billion a year without being pretty good at what you do. So
True. Word does
competition is going to be
spread.
stiff. Yeah, right. So how do we become different or separate ourselves? And that's where that was like this is like in 2015-ish, and that's when direct to consumer was starting to get out of the niche of just being like a cheap alternative, right? You saw brands like Shinola out of Detroit doing leather goods and watches, Combatant Gentlemen doing suits. So you started to see this higher end boutique concept, Tesla selling cars directly to the consumer, right, without a traditional dealer. It was becoming more mainstream. So then you sort of put the idea of a passion project with how could we differentiate ourselves and or give the customer better value, because if you are Titleist, the downside is they're the PGA Tour Superstore is marking it up another 50%. It's like a 1950s distribution model,
Hmm.
and we figured we could use technology and like a hub and spoke system to custom build directly for the customer. So it was you know timing of what do I want to do next, and had the freedom to do it, and then the timing of that direct to consumer market becoming more mainstream where people it's not as in left field 10 years ago, still a little left field, but you could see where it was going.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack in what you just shared because as you share your story now, you share it having experienced it. But at the beginning, was it kind of intimidating or maybe even terrifying? Because you're going to take a pretty big risk to go out and do something that in the golf space wasn't being done a lot. I mean, we have a great example like with Dean Snell at Snell Golf and what they're
Mhm.
doing with golf balls and took a big risk. He left behind his gigs at the big box companies to go and do his own thing, and it's gone very well for him, the direct to consumer idea. But other than Dino, nothing else in the golf realm springs to the top of my mind. So at the beginning, were you nervous?
No,
Really?
no, you can't play scared. If you play scared and I mean, I believe we were on the right path. I mean, was there a lot of work? Did people think I was nuts? Sure.
Sure.
Right. Like I share the idea and people are like, but direct to consumer is always a cheap alternative, right? So I mean, of course there were people who you thought I was half out of my mind, like, how are you going to do this? I'm not trying to sound arrogant, but was I ever like nervous? No, you can't play. It's like playing golf, right? Like
Yeah.
you want to be nervous. I wouldn't call it like nervous. Like I was excited. Like I thought we were onto something. You gotta remember too, I already had a successful company that we could. I was not like leaving a high paying job and going to a career switch. I had the space, and I'm in the golf business already.
Hmm.
So it was like starting another golf club company. so I had the resources, the space, the team to sort of what do you know what do we all want to do next, right? So I wouldn't say nervous. I was not scared because, like I said, if you play scared and you're not willing to take the risk and you're not willing, once we believed we were on the right path, you just got to go like hell. And it was almost good people thought I was crazy, because I mean, if you're not doing, I mean, because like back to our point, like, how do we differentiate ourselves without it being different, without bringing to the table the customer service, the customization, doing it all in Sycamore? And you saw some other industries where it was working, like I said, Shinola, I mean, their leather products are amazing, and it's not $8,000 for a lady's leather handbag. It was like
Right.
$400, and the quality was amazing.
Yeah.
So you saw it in other industries. Golf's a little slow to adapt. So I would say I was more excited. Like we thought we were onto something ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and there is something unique about the golf space. Let's use your Shinola example for a moment. It is very possible to launch a customized boutique brand without being passionate about leather handbags, watches, or now a hotel. You could just have a great idea. I don't think you can operate in the direct to consumer customized golf space without having a great passion for golf. I just think you have to have, you can't fake your way through it because golfers know that pretty quickly. So, where did the seed initially get planted in Jason's life? Like, who got you into the game back whenever that happened?
I grew up in Hinckley, Illinois. There's no traffic lights. We're a half hour from a McDonald's. We had barns in our backyard. So I grabbed my dad's golf club and started hitting balls off the barn. Just because, like, yeah, I don't know, you're bored as a kid. And I played all other sports and stuff like that, but I fell in love with it.
Hmm.
Like I loved golfing. My parents didn't really golf, but my parents did get me it was a Chauvin, Illinois, Indian Oaks Country Club is a little semi-private golf course, nine-holer, like the classic you play as the kid with the pull cart, right? Like you just keep playing
All
nine
day,
holes.
all day, all day, all day.
No sprinkler system on the fairway or rough,
Nice.
just on the greens. So like
Yeah.
you played the conditions, and my mom would drop me out. My mom looks like a genius now that I have kids. She would just drop me off there all day. And the old guys back in the day would yell at you if you got out of line. So it was like, good parenting all around you. I just played golf with we played all the time. So I fell in love with it really early. And I still love it today, meaning, I'm working it 7 days a week if I'm not traveling, and I still take golf trips.
Hmm.
Like I still love to play.
Well, you kind of have to, and I'm guessing I know what brand is in your bag when you're out playing.
Yeah.
The messaging component to all of this, the breaking through to the golf consumer, it's got to be, I would think, among the biggest challenges because you know how to craft the hardware, you know how to put all that together, and as you expand the company into accessories and into apparel and different things, the core of it is coming back to golf clubs. How do you break through the clutter of the big spends by the traditional brands that it makes it tough to break through at times. I think of this in terms of a Shark Tank question, right? Because if you're presenting on Shark Tank, they're going to say, "Well, how do people know about you? How do people know Sub 70?"
Well, at the start or how now, because we've been doing it for a while. It's obviously it's easier to grab traction now that we have traction and the company's really growing and it's turned into a real brand. At first, like that was going to be tricky. What we did is utilize social media.
Yeah.
That was also really good timing because when it started, it was just starting to get more mainstream on how to reach people. And we went with a very authentic message. I think people through social media, and I think people even more today than when we started, yearn for authenticity. So it was a passion project to start off with. I cared that much. Our staff cares that much about the customer experience. And I think, and we made really good products. So I think the messaging, people were yearning for different brands of not the same golf commercials on the golf channel
Yeah.
where, my cell phone is out there for people to call, still is today. We were accessible. And then what helped, the first year, which really helped get us on the map, is we won a couple My Golf Spy awards for products. And then then Golf WRX picks up on it. And then my friend Mark Halkovecchia
Hmm.
put the clubs in play on the Champions Tour. And we didn't have no budget to pay anybody. And he played them because he liked them and put it out on social.
Wow.
That was the two biggest breaks we got in year one, is winning some awards. We were, I was the spokesperson because we didn't have a budget to pay a better looking, more handsome, guy. So I had to learn to get on a camera, and do it because there was no budget to do it. But I think the authenticity, and hopefully still today, came through where we care and we wanted the customer not to feel like an invoice number. We wanted them to pick up a phone and be able to call a competent person and say, tell me what's going on and how can we help you?
Hmm.
And I think golf was missing that, where it became very commercialized, very corporate, and very invoice numbery.
It's
And
interesting that you say
yeah,
that, Jason, because as I think about the leading and most frequently viewed commercials that we see today on tour coverage, tour event coverage, of course, all those commercials are featuring PGA Tour players or LPGA players. Of course they are. That's what they want us to believe. But is it relatable? And is that person actually playing the clubs because they really love those clubs or because somebody wrote them a really impressive paycheck? Maybe it's both. It's very possible. I understand that the clubs are the key to making a great livelihood in the game. So maybe that's exactly the motivation. But there are stories from not that long ago of players who would appear in a lot of commercials or print ads for a particular brand. And then the Darrell survey count on the first tee of their event would show a very mixed bag, or show that they were playing a different set of clubs entirely, but slapped the labels on for the product in which they appeared. So, right. So you've got to know that being genuine is key to this sub 70 message. And it sounds like that's exactly where you've been all along.
yeah, because I've been in golf, since 17 years old and I'm 52. So we saw exactly what you were seeing. That's probably changed from, the Nike days when, those guys could not get the equipment dialed in and, they were doing things, but the money was so good they had to take the money from Nike. Now I think there is so much money at play on the PGA Tour or
Yeah.
LIV, and LIV has added to the bottom line that the difference between third place and ninth place 15 years ago wasn't that much money versus the club contract.
Yeah.
Now it is. So you're not seeing guys taking club contracts that they don't feel really works from. I don't think there's the Nike deals where they got Rory and Rory's like, okay, at 20, whatever they paid, $25 million 15 years ago, I'll make the clubs work.
Right.
There's not that much money in professional golf club contracts. The pros don't have the same impact it once did.
Yeah.
When there was only a few outlets to see what was going on, right? You could really kind of control the message. Social media's changed that. Um, and I think the club contracts have probably changed a little bit more too, where they're requiring those players to play that, maybe 10 or 11 clubs and the ball in that bag. So that player has to be comfortable. The other thing you're seeing on tour is guys just taking software contracts and going brand agnostic, right? So they'd rather work for Barclays Bank, put that on the side of the bag, do 8 outings a year, and then they're high, they're free, and that's really good for sub 70 because we've got some players because they, wanted to put one fairway wood in. So it's the landscape has changed, but I also think the big companies have changed with that too, where they realized once word got out, that the player's not playing that club or the ball's not the ball. I don't see that as much anymore. I think, there's so much money at play
Yeah.
that the equipment has to line up with that person's comfort zone to be able to go out and compete against the best in the world. But there's been a nice opportunity for us on the Corn Ferry Tour and European Tour or DP World Tour to get some clubs and some guys bags because they're taking other ways of having sponsorship so they can have a sub 70 wedge, potentially a ping driver, Titleist golf ball, and Mizuno irons, right? And they play what they want to. You're seeing more of that.
So across all of the options in the sub 70 lineup, is there a particular club or particular sector that is the most popular? Is it the irons? Is it the wedges? What are you seeing most often requested?
Irons and wedges, that's kind of what we started off with, but the driver category is really growing for us. We know our driver technology with our first patent is really good. We're working on some new stuff with the baseline of being the art technology that we have. Fairway wood segment is growing, But like if a pro first reaches out to us, it's usually irons and wedges. But we're making strides in those other things as well as people put them in play, and we get a little bit more PR of, hey, this thing is really good or it tests really well. But
Yeah.
at first, we were kind of an iron and wedge company. So if a touring pro reaches out, I mean, they'll try the other stuff, but that's normally probably just because it's our reputation of how we started.
So, what are professionals most frequently expecting or demanding from an iron that maybe amateurs wouldn't think of or wouldn't really put on their list of requirements for the same kind of decision? If a pro contacts you and says, "Hey, I've heard that your irons can do this and this," what is that?
It's never just one thing, right? So if you're asking kind of something that a pro might bring up versus, an amateur player,
Yeah.
a lot of time it's the window.
Hmm.
The club needs to go through that certain window,
Okay.
where the trajectory control, they see it coming off that way. Now they can all work it both directions, but a lot of times, not only does the spin rate have to be right and, the shaft optimized with the head, with the ball, and you can kind of get those numbers off a TrackMan or a GC quad, but that art of the window and
Interesting.
feel, right? It has to feel right. The club has to look right. So when they're putting it down, there's confidence in before I even pull the trigger. But like something that's just different is window. Those guys see things through that starting window.
Yeah. Yeah, they have a different eye, that's for sure. An eye that
100%.
even an accomplished amateur rarely has that eye or that expectation for it, which reminds me of the matter of fitting. When you're direct to consumer, how do you address when people say, "Well, I got to get fit for this. Can I send you my specs?" Like I did. I
Yes.
sent you my specs from my Titleist fitting. I don't know if it's a one-to-one match or if you guys have a formula where you go, "All right, well, this is 0.8% different in our world," and how you do all that math. How do you do fitting for somebody in our audience right now who says, "Man, I'd like to try the sub 70 world, but I don't know how to make sure that they're sending me what I need."
Yeah, so a lot of times at first, because we were really boutique niche, a lot of the customers just knew what they wanted. They knew they need dynamic gold S300s at a half inch over. Then we also, as we grew, got customers who have no idea.
Hmm.
And it's like doctor's notes, right? So if you sent me a
Interesting.
fitting,
Yeah.
it's like a doctor reading an MRI from another radiologist doing it. We've done this so many thousands of times
Okay, hang
that
on.
you can
You don't
just,
you don't know this, Jason, but I just had an MRI done on my right knee yesterday, and this afternoon I'm going to a doctor to have him read it. So you're speaking my language right now.
yeah, and then you just get, okay, where will you start and what do the numbers look like? Okay, let's say they got fit into a Titleist club. It's almost like a sixth sense because triangle's triangle, length is length.
Hmm.
But our head kind of fits that style of head that that customer needs. You can tell from the data. And then you just put the puzzle together. So, like I said, the equivalent would be like if there was a report about your knee and you sent it to another orthopedic surgeon in LA, they'd be able to look at the x-ray, read the MRI report and go, hey, I bet, you're going to need this. It's sort of the same idea. Then we've done this thousands and thousands of times, literally. So you just get a really good idea of what's going on. And the other thing that we do for our clients is if you get something and it's not perfect, you call us. We are never, because they're trusting us to custom make this, sometimes not even hitting it. So that back end promise
Yeah,
has to be there
yeah,
that if it's not right or something's not perfect, you call us and we will work with you to get it right. And that's where, having that customer service where you hit one button or my phone is still out there or our guys know what they're doing, because you have to have that to give that customer the security that we're just not going to leave you on an island, which we would never do.
yeah. And for the customer service angle of it, I think that's probably part of the fast traveling word of mouth that can make or break a company, right? Golfers talk. We understand it's a small community of us in this world of golf, and good news and bad news travels rather quickly. Probably bad news travels faster than the good news, but that's the nature of our culture these days. Um, when somebody I'm not going to say takes the risk because it's not a risk, but when somebody decides to try something new in sub 70, having the confidence that on the back end, we're going to be able to tweak and adjust and make it right for you. I would have to think that that is a security blanket that customers are looking for.
We hope, and it's real. Like, we like it would drive me nuts if I knew a customer got something and it wasn't perfect for them.
Yeah.
It would drive me nuts. So if you need to call me at 8 on a Sunday night, I'll answer the phone. I mean, if I don't, I'll call you back that night still. Like you have to have that. You have to have that for that client because they may not have put their hands on the clubs until they got it. And then we owe that.
Hmm.
If they're trusting us with their hard-earned money, we owe that full process from start to finish that that club is exactly what they're looking for. And that's the beauty of having the custom shop and doing it in Sycamore too, right? Somebody needs them bent one more degree upright, or we got to reshaft them to a quarter inch longer. Like this is why we do it here.
Yeah.
Clubs come back, they get modified, they get resent out in a couple of days. Like you could not do this unless we were doing it live with club builders in Sycamore, Illinois. You can't farm this out.
Yeah, if they had to go on a slow boat overseas every single time, then you're weeks in between transactions and it's just not going to work. People aren't that patient.
Correct. You have to do it
How,
here.
how different is Sub 70 today at the end of 2025 than it was the day you first flipped the switch with the brand?
Oh my gosh, the product line is much deeper,
Yeah.
right? Much broader. We probably have a better, I mean, you just learn from your mistakes and what you do well, right? So I would argue our team is stronger, customer service is more efficient, spirit's still the same. Probably our messaging and branding because you get that feedback loop, of how it's going, what are customers saying, how is it perceived on social media? Like your branding, which we've never really switched the branding because we try to stay authentic to who we are, but you can tighten up the messaging,
Hmm.
right? So it's probably more consistent of what we know, what we do well, and what we try to convey to the clients. So it's just, you learn. You're
You
constantly learning, right? So it's probably just it's a tighter running machine, but
Yeah.
still not corporate where it's, you know, you can't get a human on the phone or it's totally changed or speaking for myself like can't talk to Jason anymore. He's off, like the DNA is still there.
Within our respective lanes in the golf world, with me in media and you're in the world of equipment, I look back at where we started 27 years ago, and there are things that we did back then that in the moment we were like, this is the right way to do this. And then, of course, you get 10, 15, 25 years down the road, you're like, what the heck was I thinking? That made absolutely no sense. So you try to learn and do it a little bit better as you move forward. Do you have any of those, what was I thinking moments from the early days?
No, we never did anything that was like, oh my God, like
Sure.
that was, just horrible or wow, that almost ruined the company or really shot us in the foot. I look back at some of when I was first on camera and it wasn't real great, right? Like you have to learn that skill set of how to communicate better and slow down when you're doing an interview or when you're doing, I'm more efficient at doing the stuff that we do for the company. But no, there's nothing that was ever, because I think our intentions were always, done with passion for this and with caring.
Yeah.
So there's not been, I think we're just more refined, but no, there was no like, we brought this product line out, it didn't sell and it was awful. And oh my God, what the hell were we thinking?
Yeah.
But I had also been in golf for a long time. I was in my, what, 10 years ago. So I was in my early 40s, when we started it. So it wasn't like, I think it'd been harder. I always said, if you were a dentist, stop being a dentist and got in to start sub 70,
Right. Right.
but we had some experience. So no, nothing that stands out except I think we're just a more efficient machine. And I mean it in a good way, not where it's inauthentic, but we're probably better at all those little nuance things.
Yeah. Do you have conversations with other direct to consumer entrepreneurs like Dean Snell or
Oh
someone
yeah,
in the category?
yeah,
I guess
yeah. Dean's
you're kind of part of a small family, aren't you?
Yeah, like Dean's been inspiration, man. Like how do you not have just the ultimate respect for first off his legacy in golf of how great of a designer he is. He's a wonderful human being. And yeah, like it's Dean Snell, man. Like he's a legend. So yeah, like I gain inspiration from having, friendships with those guys and talking to him and watch what he's done.
Yeah.
Like it's incredible his story.
Let me kind of close out our time by inviting you to kind of make the elevator pitch to our audience who has never before heard of Sub 70. They've been listening to you and I talk about it now for a little over 25 minutes. They're like, okay, let me get the full scope of what this is all about. What's the pitch from the CEO?
Yeah, I wouldn't say it's like I don't really do pitches. It's more of like here's our lane of what we do. Imagine having your clubs built just like the professionals get built. There is no mass production. It's all hand built in Sycamore. So you can get any modification, the amount of shafts and grip combinations, you know, we pretty much, if it's made, we can get it and do it. But we're also here to help you because sometimes that can be really intimidating of what do I do and am I getting this right? So hopefully by having, a Nordstrom level of customer service and be able to get a human on the phone that knows what's going on, we'll walk you through that process because we want you to love the equipment. We want you to play great. We want you to be a long-term customer. It's really important to us. And then the advantage is because it's direct to consumer, it doesn't cost as much as a retail store because there's not two people who need to make money on it. So it's a more efficient mousetrap, essentially, right? It's more of a modern distribution way versus the traditional, I call it like 1950s distribution model. And I say this too, like, there's a lot of really, for the consumer, it's never been better. There's, you know, the golf club companies, I mean, you're old enough to remember when some of those stuff, in the 90s came out and you would have a good, every company had a good line and a bad line and a bad club, then a good club. And now like the competition or how good everything is better than ever. So for the consumer, they've never been in a better position with all the companies, but that's the niche of what we kind of do that differentiates ourselves kind of from the other golf club companies. And that all, we're all building them here in Sycamore.
Well, I'm thankful for our common friend Adam Fonseca for kind of introducing the two of us, and I love stories like this. I just really do. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm an entrepreneur myself and have this story behind us at Michigan Golf Live and the Four Golfers Network. But I love to see successful idea and dreamers making their way in a crowded space, and that's the sub 70 world. You're in a crowded space with the big boys and they're taking notice. I'm sure you're probably hearing from some of those reps around the country who are like, hey, dude, you're cutting into my sales here a little bit. And I know
Yeah,
that
I mean,
customers
there's just more hats and logos and clubs. I get more of the, hey, I was down in Savannah, Georgia, and two guys saw
yeah.
my hat. I was down there on vacation and they saw my sub 70 hat and we compared clubs. Like it's for sure the company's doing great. We're growing. It's doing really, really well. So yeah, it's been fun to see this thing kind of take off. And I always say I'm the luckiest person on the face of the earth. Like I get to do this for a job.
Right.
And it's so much fun. Like as you well know, in golf, you meet wonderful people. And I have a job where it's like most people are, happy to talk to me. They're usually like if you're a general contractor, there's usually, if it gets to you, there's a problem, I would assume, right? Most people who come to me or us, they're excited about their golf game. They're excited about getting a new golf club. So I get a lot of positive in my world. Like I'm really lucky. I mean, I'm going to keep doing this but I'm so fortunate to be able to do what I do. And I love my job and I love our customers. And it's been so much fun on this journey.
Well, here's hoping that a lot of the folks who have taken in this conversation will go and explore the world of sub 70 and see if there's something that would fit into your game. I'm pretty sure there is. And I can't wait to get them in my hands and take them into our simulator studio and try them for the first time myself. So, Jason, thank you so much. Great to learn the story.
No problem. Like I said, if anyone needs help with anything, my cell's on the website. Call me. I'm always glad to help them.